Until recent years, we used men's rooms and women's rooms. No one would ever have thought of a man going into a woman's restroom. Today, you choose whichever you prefer. Biology doesn't matter, only your gender identity. 4 years ago, Dr. Ben Carson was chastised over his conclusion that radical ideologies in the LGBT community wanted to push the nation towards pedophilia and bestiality. But he was right. The logical drift and unstated goal of the postmoderns is to destroy the natural family and the transcendent moral order. In fact, their ultimate goal is the elimination of the very concept of male and female binary sexuality. Ricky Wilchins, founder of the Gender Public Advocacy Coalition, states, "Ending our culture's obsession with what's male and what's female will be our salvation." Homosexual activists do not simply want to have a place to think and be different. They want everyone else to affirm their non-binary standards. The transcendent masculine and feminine has disappeared from our modern naturalistic culture. Now, postmodern culture wants to abolish the biology, the reality of sex. They want to de-sex society, to eradicate human sexuality, the family, and society as we have always known it. But to abolish biology is delusion, and delusion leads to chaos. What happens to the poor souls who transition to the opposite gender and remain confused? Who regrets that decision? What happens to a society as a whole? Without a framework rooted in reality and objective morality, the only limit to sexual license is human imagination. LGBTQIAP, where does it end? Another dimension of this conflict over human sexuality has to do with language and terminology. When we defer to false terminology, we're ceding the battle at the level of language. We need to resist the postmodern language. That doesn't mean you have to be unnecessarily offensive, but we must stop sacrificing truth on the altar of being nice. We need to stand our ground and politely refuse to use illegitimate language or fabricated personal pronouns. Here are some suggestions for real-world application. Reserve the word marriage for that which is between one man and one woman. A relationship between a same-sex couple is not marriage. Call it a civil union if you want, or a so-called marriage, but not marriage. The famous Olympic athlete named Jenner isn't actually a woman. Let's call him Bruce. A boy should be lovingly called a boy and a girl a girl. To recognize their trans identity is to promote a lie. Remember, the issue isn't sex, but worldview. A battle for the civilization between Judeo-Christian theism and paganism. We should speak the truth in love, and in the process, pursue clarity, not compromise. We need to lead the Judeo-Christian resistance to the onslaught of postmodern ideology. It was Jews and Christians who lifted pagan culture out of the pit. They established the gold standard for human sexuality and the natural family by teaching and practicing the biblical view of marriage. It's time to challenge the postmodern culture. What shape will this challenge take? Some will speak and write, seeking to reform the language and the culture. Some will write songs and ballads using their art form to restore the dignity of marriage, the family, and the maternal, the beauty of human sexuality. Some will preach sermons on the glory of our purpose and design, and the biblical narrative on family and human sexuality. Some will lead protests in the public square to draw attention to the madness we are facing. Some will draw lines in the sand and say, "No further, regardless of the consequences. I will not obey laws that sanction this nonsense and undermine our precious God-given freedoms of conscience, religion, and speech. And yes, I'm willing to pay a price for violating laws like that." For many, it will mean to take seriously the cultural mandate to be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth, to marry, form families, enjoy God's gift of human sexuality, and rejoice in the children who are the fruit of that intimacy. Here are a couple things you can do right now. Sign the Manhattan Declaration. Join a group like Alliance Defending Freedom. Are you committed to be part of the resistance? What specific things will you do to bring reform?